Eala bows out of Australian Open doubles. Set to shift focus to Philippine Open. Eala is set to see action in the WTA 125 Philippine Open. This became all but certain after the Filipina tennis ace officially wrapped up her 2026 Australian Open campaign, bowing out in the opening round of the women's doubles competition on Tuesday. Eala and her partner Ingrid Martins of Brazil squandered several golden opportunities as they fell in 3 sets to Japan's Shuko Aima and Poland's Magda Linette 6-7, 3-6, 6-2, 3-6 in the first round at Melbourne Park. Currently at a career-high world doubles ranking of number 134, Eala alongside world number 80 Martins had their chances to seize early control of the match. The pair raced to a commanding 4-0 lead in the opening set, but the veteran duo of 38 and Linette, 33, remained composed and steadily worked their way back, trimming the deficit to 4-3. Although Eala and Martins extended their advantage to 5-3, Aya and Linette mounted another rally, forcing a tie break after leveling the score in the 12th game. The seasoned pair then took charge in the breaker, jumping to a 3-0 lead and never looking back en route to claiming the opening set. The second set saw the Filipino-Brazilian tandem respond with renewed intensity. Once again, they surged ahead 4-0, but this time made sure not to relinquish the advantage. After the Japanese-Polish duo claimed the 5th and 6th games, Eala and Martin swept the next 2 to level the match and force a decider. Aima, a 2023 Australian Open women's doubles finalist and former world number 4, and Linette, a 2023 US Open doubles quarterfinalist, ensured they would not stumble out of the gates again in the third set. Instead, they stormed to a 4-0 lead of their own. Martins threatened a comeback when they closed the gap to 4-3, but that proved to be as close as they would get. Aima and Linette sealed the match in the 9th game at Court 12 of Melbourne Park after 2 hours and 36 minutes. The court that teaches Eala's end and a new beginning. There is an old saying in sport, every ending is a beginning in disguise. For Alexandra Alex, Filipino tennis's brightest young star, the 2026 Australian Open was precisely that kind of crossroads. In the early days of January, under the blazing lights of Melbourne Park, she stepped onto the hard courts of the year's first Grand Slam with aspirations as large as the crowd that had turned Court 6 into a sea of red, blue, and yellow. But when the final ball was struck, her campaign in Australia had concluded not with a trophy or a deep run, but with a pair of hard-fought losses and a lesson in resilience, a chapter closing as another equally compelling one was about to begin. A stage bigger than scores. From the moment Eala arrived in Melbourne, she was a focal point of local and international attention, not simply as a competitor, but as a symbol. A 20-year-old daughter of Manila whose journey had taken her from junior triumphs to the top 50 in the world rankings. Eala carried with her the hopes of a nation eager for representation on tennis's biggest stages. Each match became more than points on a scoreboard. It became a narrative of pride, identity, and possibility. In her Australian Open singles debut, she raced through the first set against American Alicia Parks, a thrilling 6-0 that sent waves of excitement through Filipino supporters. But tennis, like life, is not a straight line. Parks regrouped, raised her level, and ultimately secured victory in 3 sets, ending Eala's singles run. The defeat was narrow in score but expansive in lesson. Intensity, adaptation, and mental endurance matter as much as raw talent. Still, the journey was not yet over for Eala. With her partner Ingrid Martins from Brazil, she entered the women's doubles draw. Another chance, another canvas on which to paint her potential. As the match unfolded against seasoned opponents, Magda Linette and Shuko Aima, the Filipina and her partner displayed flashes of brilliance. They opened with a commanding 4-0 lead, fought back after dropping the first set, and refused to yield without a challenge. But in the end, it was experience that edged out momentum and they bowed out in 3 competitive sets. The Australian Open dream had concluded, but the story was far from over. The weight of expectation and the gift of crowd energy. One of the unique experiences of this particular tournament was the palpable passion of fans. Hundreds of Filipinos traveled or tuned in from back home to watch Eala compete. Flags waved, cheers echoed. Court 6, often overlooked during other matches, felt like a home court thousands of miles from Manila. This outpouring of support was a double-edged sword, a source of strength that lifted her early performance and a reminder of the pressure that comes with being a national favorite on a global stage. For Eala, Those moments of cheering and chanting represented something deeply personal. In her post-match reflections, she spoke not just of performance, but of the emotional landscape of competition, the joy of support, the challenge of expectation, and the enduring pride of representing her country in a sport where on the sunlit hardcourts of Melbourne Park, under the sprawling Australian summer sky, Filipina tennis star Alexandra Eala walked into what many called the dawn of her Grand Slam breakthrough. The crowds were buzzing, the flags waved proudly, and belief coursed through every cheer that echoed across the stands. But sport, in its glorious unpredictability, sometimes writes a story far different from what we expect. What unfolded in the women's doubles event at the 2026 Australian Open was more than a match. It was a moment that tested resilience, highlighted growth, and set the stage for an even bigger chapter back home in Manila. Fire, a brilliant run meets a sudden stop. Eala, paired with Brazil's Ingrid Martins, approached their first-round doubles match with confidence and an unmistakable hunger to succeed. After a strong start, racing to a 4-0 lead, the Filipino-Brazilian duo looked poised to upset their seasoned opponents, Magda Linette and Shuko Ayama. But tennis can be a game of momentum swings. Defensive play turned to offense from Linette and Ayama, and despite Eala and Martins forcing a decisive third set, the comeback proved just out of reach. After 2 hours and 38 minutes of intense battle, it was the experienced pair who sealed the victory, dealing a stunning end to Eala's Australian Open doubles stint. For many fans back home, the exit was a shock, not because it came unexpectedly, but because so much hope had been invested in every forehand, every serve, every sprint across the court. And in Melbourne, this wasn't just another first-round exit. It was a snapshot of how far Alex's star has risen, her journey now measured not only by wins and losses, but by the waves she creates wherever she plays. Globe with Asia Australia more than a match, a cultural moment. During her Australian Open solo and doubles matches, Eala wasn't just another entrant on the draw sheet. She was a phenomenon. Courts were packed with Filipino fans chanting, "Let's go, Alex," and waving Philippine flags with pride. Her presence was so electrifying that even opposing players spoke about the difficult atmosphere created by her supporters.